This question says, which is not equivalent? Remember, equivalent means equal to. So which is not equal to this equation here? So if we look at the different choices, we see that each of them are saying what L equals. So this question is really just asking us to solve for L and see which of these is not the answer. Now this is what we call a literal equation, where there's a lot of different variables, but we're following the same steps to move numbers from one side of the equal sign to the other as we do when we're solving just a regular equation, an equation you're more used to. So I'm just going to convert this to a more typical equation. I'm going to leave the 2L, but since we don't know what P is, I'm going to change that to 12. And we don't know what 2W is. Let's change that to 4. And now let's look at this equation and think, how do we solve this on the right? Now, I always we're moving numbers away from the variable. I always undo what's added or subtracted to that variable first. So my first step would be to move the plus 4 by subtracting 4 from both sides. Because anything subtracting something from itself always gives you 0. So 4 minus 4 cancels out. So we're going to follow this same strategy with the problem on the left. We're going to solve for L, so we're going to move what's added or subtracted to it. We're going to move this plus 2W by subtracting 2W. Because subtracting anything from itself always gives you 0. 2W minus 2W is 0. But on the left, we have P minus 2W. So P represents an unknown number, and the same with W. We don't know what that number is. And P and W are different variables, so they're not like terms. We can't combine it. So we're just going to leave that as P minus 2W. Now let's look at what we have. If we look at the problem here on the right, I just need to move this 2 to the other side, so L will be by itself. So I'm going to do that by dividing by 2. So when I divide by 2 on the left side, I have 4. And on the right side, those 2's cancel out. So I'm going to follow this same strategy with my problem on the left. I'd need to move this 2, so I'm going to divide by 2 because 2 divided by 2 cancels out. But on the left side, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm just going to leave it as L equals P minus 2W divided by 2. And notice I said L equals that. I can switch the sides. With equations, you can always take what's on the right side and move it to the left side, and take what's on the left side and move it to the right side. So let's just rewrite that. So this is what we get right here. Now let's look at our choices. Yes, A here is what we have. So we know A is equivalent to this. We're looking for what's not equivalent. So let's look and think about how we can modify, how we can simplify this a little further and maybe get one of the other choices. So what this is saying when you are dividing by 2, this is saying that P is being divided by 2 and this minus 2W is being divided by 2. So let's rewrite that. And if we take a closer look at this, we can see that we can simplify it a little further. Now P, we don't know what it is, so I can't divide that by 2 and get anything. So I'm going to leave that as P divided by 2. But 2W divided by 2, I can take that 2 divided by 2 and cancel it out. So I just have P divided by 2 minus W. So that gives us C. So we know the answer is not A and not C. Now let's take a look at the other two and try to figure this out. If I am looking at what I have here and B, I don't know how I can get that W down into the denominator like that. So let's take a look at D instead and see if we can figure how that one can be modified. So this one looks somewhat similar. Notice that they both have the P minus 2W. P minus 2W. But what's different? Instead of dividing by 2, they are multiplying by 1/2. Is dividing by 2 the same as multiplying by 1/2? Well, let's think about that. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Is 8 multiplied by 1/2 the same as 4? Yes. So that is also equivalent. This is also the same as saying P minus 2W multiplied by 1/2. So this is also good. So this would be the only one that is not equivalent.